For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. Never mind Donald Trump just for the moment. Asia markets fairly mixed. They're looking at a weaker than expected US labour market. Also a surprise 25 basis points, 0.25% rise in interest rates in New Zealand, Hong Kong and China closed for a holiday. So fairly mixed there, but as I say, the major markets shut for a holiday. I'm going to take you to Egypt now, and we're going to look at the Egyptian pound, which, as you know, was devalued in January. It's one of the poorest performing currencies in the world right now. Inflation is running at headline inflation is running at 31.9% in the country. Food, mainly by food prices, and the only worst places for inflation at the moment in the world are Lebanon, Zimbabwe and Venezuela, and the core inflation is rising by 40% in Egypt. Now, the good thing as far as Egypt is concerned is from our country, from the United Kingdom, a lot of people go to Egypt on holiday, and there are a lot of articles now persuading people to go there because of the weakness of the Egyptian pound. Doesn't help their economy massively. They are a major wheat importer, and of course they're suffering as well because of the Ukraine war. I'm going to mark, I know that you know this was going to happen, but it's worth marking today, Finland's formal accession to NATO. It expands the NATO border with Russia by just over 800 miles. The thing is that what Russia was said it will do, it will take countermeasures against this. What they are, still waiting for the detail of that. So let us turn our attention to the United States and that historic day when Donald Trump faced all 34 charges, 34 criminal counts of falsifying business records. When these were all put to him, as you know, he said he's not guilty. His additional comment was America is going to hell. So we had a lot of conspiracy statements, worries about conspiracy in the United States coming from Donald Trump. We have to see how that works at the moment. It has to be said, but whether or not Alvin Bragg, who's the New York district attorney, can make these charges stick, Trump is next in court in December, so there's quite a long time to work on this. And I should remind you that these charges, not taking any side here, just a reminder that the New York judiciary actually did look at these charges and decided there wasn't a case to answer. But Alvin Bragg seems to think differently. Now, as far as and so what happened as far as the market is concerned? Absolutely zero attention to that. The fact is that markets actually rose. The futures actually have risen very, very slightly indeed. But the big jolts, and I use that word because that's what they call the jolts, which are the openings, business openings for people to have jobs in the United States, have fallen to £10 million, 10 million of them. That's the first time in 2 years. So that's what they're worrying about right now. You caught a glimpse of him just then, Jamie Dimon. The outgoing CEO, long-time president and CEO of JP Morgan Chase, is warning that the banking crisis, not as bad as the 2008 financial crisis, but the consequences of it will bounce around the markets for a number of years. So there's going to be no immediate closure as far as that's concerned. Just to remind you that the likes of JP Morgan and the rest of them gave about £30 billion in asset deposits to First Republic, but they couldn't obviously save SVB and Signature. In the UK, then, TikTok, it continues battle against them. This time they've been fined $16 million for misusing, apparently, data that they've got from children. They themselves say children under 13 should not be using TikTok, but millions of them, thousands at least, of them do. 1.4 million users throughout the world. The UK gender pay gap is not narrowing, despite the efforts of corporate companies and indeed regulators to try to make it. Men still out-earn women in the UK. 80% of UK companies pay their men more than they pay their women. That has not change, despite all these efforts to try to narrow that gap. And it looks like, now this is according to the chief economist of the Bank of England, a gentleman by the name of Hugh Pill. He's often voted with the majority as far as the Monetary Policy Committee is concerned. And he's done an interview with the Financial Times, and it looks as though there will be an interest rate rise in May. Currently, base rate stands at 4.25%, 4.25%. He's saying a tough job is still. It is still to be seen through. That's been taken by the journalists at the Financial Times, and I suspect most market commentators as well, that the end is not in sight for interest rate rises. Let me take you finally to the oil market. Exxon is saying that it can see a time when its green power will eclipse oil and gas, and that $100 per barrel forecast from Goldman Sachs looks less likely this morning because of recession fears in the United States. And it looks like the oil price has hit a bit of a wall. Gold continuing to rise. Will it get to 2,100 an ounce? That's really the question that's being asked right now for all the sorts of reasons. You see weakening economies, more people are piling into gold. They weren't yesterday, but they have been overnight. And finally, Bitcoin. People are beginning to look at Bitcoin once again. If you remember, it sort of got to about $30,000. The jobs figures on Friday are going to be absolutely crucial to its future. If they're poor, and we'll see how Bitcoin actually manages to transverse that economic headwind, then it may be that it rises further. That's what the markets are saying. That's the global view this morning.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Two things. First one, going to the money aspect of Donald Trump's indictment. According to his advisors, he's been able to raise $7 million since his indictment. So just pointing to the fact that he hasn't lost perhaps popularity amongst his supporters base. So that's the money aspect of things. He's facing 34 counts, despite that, still being able to raise money. In fact, in his speech to his supporters post his appearance in court, you would see the text Trump to the certain numbers. So he's still very much raising money for his campaign and towards elections 2024. On the other side, TikTok. I've asked you a number of questions around TikTok, around issues around safety concerns, and now in the UK they've been fined £12.7 billion, even though some analysts have said that it's not near enough. They made £80 billion and they would just put it as expenses in their business. Do you think that the fine ought to have been upped in terms of giving a more stringent fine, bearing in mind the fact that 1.4 million children under the age of 13 had access without being properly regulated on the app? And what's
I couldn't comment on the amount of the fine. I would just say this, that the UK regulators are not being specific about, apart from the age thing, they're not being specific about how this information has been misused. So, I mean, I don't know where they get the figure from. It sounds very precise at £12.7 million. What is it, $16 million? Where they get that from, I do not know. So I couldn't possibly comment on the fact that it ought to be more or it ought to be less. I think what's happening, despite what appears to be a rather ineffective defence, at least this is how the United States saw it 2 weeks ago from the CEO of TikTok, who stood in front of a congressional committee, and he tried to defend TikTok's position, but the United States wasn't buying it, the EU's not buying it, now the UK is not buying it either. That's the headwind that it faces. I feel as though the fine is one thing, but the general feeling about TikTok, the general banning, and remember Australia has joined in as well, hasn't it, in terms of its government devices, joined the UK, EU and the United States, and I feel as though the headwinds for this are something which are simply not going to go away.
Okay, two quick things. One, Virgin Orbit, Sir Richard Branson's satellite company, has now filed for bankruptcy under Chapter 11 of the Bankruptcy Protection Act in the United States. Now, originally, I think we thought, okay, because of that failure to launch a rocket satellite, problems and all of that, resources. But the outgoing chief operating officer is now saying, he's blaming the chief executive officer, and he says that the chief executive officer owes the workers of Virgin Orbit, about 85% of them that are going to be laid off, he owes them apologies. So what are we dealing with here? A failure of business strategy or a leadership crisis at the Virgin Orbit? And then you talked about Jamie Dimon and what you said about banking crisis. Well, Credit Suisse, they had their annual general meeting yesterday where angry stakeholders raised objections. But the chairman, Lehman, apologized, and he was still retained in his position with about 57.6% of the votes. But does that settle the matter, considering the fact that those shareholders were not happy with the deal, with the UBS takeover, and federal prosecutors are still looking into Credit Suisse? Have we heard the last of the story?
Yeah, I think that what JP Morgan Chase would say about this, and remember he is outgoing at his choice, that it was down to the bigger banks to try to step in, and they did that with First Republic, and no question about that. It was too late for SVB, and it's too late for Signature, and a lot of the HSBC people are very worried about the way that HSBC suddenly, in 72 hours, bought the UK arm of Credit Suisse. So there's all this going on. I think he's referring to this, and certainly the banks are not facing the kind of existential threat that they did in 2008. I still feel, though, they probably need to cope with recession. That's nothing to do with the banking crisis, but the interest rate rises, and the general fragility of the system it may be guiding the Fed and certainly the Bank of England as to whether they will raise interest rates again, and how hard to come down inflation on inflation as a result of the bearing in mind the damage that may do to their own economies. I think that's what he was alluding to, and I feel as though it's of course there will be repercussions. I don't think anybody's denying that, but it's not an existential threat. I think that's what he was trying to say. Yeah,
I was asking about Virgin Orbit. Would they find a buyer on the long run?
Look, I have no idea what went on in that company. I don't care about a row between the COO and the CEO. In my book, the person in charge who is the person who gets paid the big bucks, and that's the CEO. And if it's a business failure, then that's all down to him, because that's what you do as a CEO. You control the board and you say this is where the company's going. And if he's found wanting in that, well, there we are. That's what CEOs do. So all down to him. It doesn't matter. You're in charge. You're the boss. You carry the can.
Well, thank you very much, Michael Wilson. Now, for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Ayo. Good to see you. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
So look, we're setting the scene here with words from a businessman I admire very much, Sean P. Diddy Combs, the head of Bad Boy Records, talking about money, because that's what we're talking about today. So listen to what he said on Instagram not too long ago.
Everything starts from money. We want to cure diabetes, you need money. You want to affect the wealth gap, you need money. You want to do education, you need anything. You need money. That's it. Everybody leave.
Everybody leave. It's all about money. That's it. So let's talk about money that came into Nigeria, which has been falling on an annual basis and a quarterly basis from the Bureau of Statistics. Capital importation. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. So how much money came into Nigeria in the fourth? This is focusing on the fourth quarter, the last 3 months of 2022. Only $1 billion came into Nigeria in 2022 in the fourth quarter. For the full year, it was 5.3 billion, which is a 20% drop from 6 billion that came in 2021. But focusing on the fourth quarter, $1 billion dropping 50% year on year from the fourth quarter of 2021. We disaggregate now and get into exactly what it is. Other investments made up the largest portion of the money that came in, $691 million in the fourth quarter. Now, what's it made of? If you look at the top right of your screen, you see that most of it was loans, right? 665 million out of the 691 million that came into the country was loans. And what happens when you take a loan? You have to make sure the loan works for you, because you're gonna have to pay the money back, and the money you pay back is from what the loan has done for you in terms of any earnings or any productivity. You can see that it dropped year on year 38%. Bottom right, you can see other claims that dropped 80%. Trade credits, nothing came in. Currency deposits, about a 14% drop year on year, only about 5 million. We look at the most critical one. If we flip ahead, foreign direct investment is what we have been looking for to come into the nation. Only $84 million in the fourth quarter came in. Year on year, that dropped by 76%. Portfolio investments actually was the second highest category after other investments. And that's, of course, is what we refer to as hot money, where you've got most, and you can see the 135 million of the 285 million at the bottom of your screen, money market instruments. So that's basically treasury bills and securities that mature in a year or under. So, and then stocks. So basically, this money only comes in to earn some type of return, and then it leaves. It doesn't stay. What we really need is the foreign direct investment, and that's only about 84 million. That has continued to fall. This is another challenge for the administration in attracting capital to the nation. And that is capital that is going to stay in one place, generates jobs, and so on and so forth. As PDD said, it's all about the money. Let's look at the countries where the money came from. The top 5. We have to be very nice to these people. The United Kingdom, 455 million came in again in the fourth quarter. South Africa, 119 million, second place. The United Arab Emirates, we talked about them yesterday and how the Dubai Wealth Fund did very well first half of 2022. Then you've got the Netherlands and then the United States, 42.4. That's your top 5. What about the states that attracted capital? This is one that is very interesting. Lagos, of course, took the bulk of what came in the fourth quarter, 600 million. I think if you annualize that, about 3.6 billion came into Lagos out of the 5.3 billion that came into the entire country. That's like over 75%. FCT in second place, fourth quarter, Akwa Ibom, Anambra, and I think Ondo. That's your top 5. Now, in total, only 9 states got any money that came into this nation out of 36. I mean, that is just... Next time we get governors that come on the show here for exclusive chats, we have to ask them what they're doing to bring in funds. So, I mean, that is the tail of the tape as far as the amount of money coming into the nation. It's not a lot. Foreign direct investment is what we really need to bring in, and you just have to attract more capital. Still on money, Vice President Yemi Osibanjo was at a Human Capital Development Forum where he was talking about the fact that the country needs to continue to focus on human capital. But this is the peer review meeting of the HCD State Fiscal Persons, which was held in Abuja. He was represented by his Deputy Chief of Staff, Ade Ipaye, and he was emphasizing that human capital development plays a critical role in addressing poverty and ensuring, participatory and sustainable economic growth. If you look at our ranking, as far as the Human Development Index is concerned, I think for 2021 from the United Nations, Nigeria is 163rd. So we've got a long way to go. So you've got the tenets there: long and healthy life, knowledge, decent standard of living. You've got indicators from, education, health, and so on and so forth. So again, to do that, what do you need to do that? You need money. So that's our update. Our update is on money, Doctor and Ayo.
Okay. Well, you were quoting Sean PDD.
Yes.
Right? But
cash.
Some other people will quote the Bible.
Okay.
Ecclesiastes 10:19.
Yes.
Which says that money answereth all things.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Isn't that why in Nigeria today, we keep hearing from the financial experts, from the government people, that revenue is our problem.
Oh,
we
yes.
need to get revenue done. Then, if you look at 1 Timothy,
yes,
also,
Doctor, you're preaching today.
That the love of money is the root of all evil. So, which means that there are two sides to it.
Yes.
However, with regard to foreign direct investment, it's just simple logic about tenets of capitalism, about the dynamics of the international political economy. Investors will go to where they can get the best return on their investment, where they can get cheap labor, where they can get market, where they can get better opportunities for their business. Now, if you don't make that available, then they hedge their bets.
Yes.
Okay? Look at the aviation industry in Nigeria, for example. 2 airlines have had to suspend services to Nigeria Etihad and Emirates.
Yes.
Emirates Airlines. What is the big issue here? That, look, they can't take their money out.
Right.
They've been appealing to the Central Bank of Nigeria. They've not been able to do it. Now, we're told that the cost of tickets
Going
on
up.
the international route has gone up
Yep.
because now they have to buy at about 555 naira, not at 444 to the dollar. So that's a disincentive for
Yep.
investment. In addition to all the issues that we have here about policy somersaults, about insecurity. So if you want to play within the international political economy and you want to attract investment, then of course you must provide the enabling environment. We talk about the enabling environment in Nigeria, but how much quality effort do we put into it? That's just the lesson there. The second point you raised about human development
Yes.
index. Yes, it's good to go to an event and talk about the need for Nigeria to continue to raise human development index. Simple logic. First, you have to invest in education.
Yep.
Create a skill set,
Yes.
a knowledge base
Yes.
that is powerful. Two, you have to invest in the health sector. It's only healthy people that can, be happy, and then you can talk about HDI. The whole spectrum, of that, of those indicators. Security, you have to provide security. So these are the challenges that we have in this environment, so that we don't just have an economy where it's an economy that attracts speculators rather than concrete investment that can generate jobs, generate opportunity, even promote innovation. Because, these investors, if they are in the good environment, they bring innovation.
Yep.
So these are the challenges, and I hope that the next set of Nigerian leaders who we took over from May 29, we just know that this is just simple common sense.
Indeed.
And doing the right thing in the best interest of the people.
Indeed.
Well, Rotus, before this report on the decline on the foreign capital importation came out last year, some analysts had already talked about this, and they had highlighted some of the reasons why this would be, why there would be a decline in foreign capital importation. One of such is commercial capitals. It said that, some of the things Dr. Dala highlighted, but a few other things, widespread insecurity. If we don't tackle our security challenges, we would not attract foreign direct investment.
Tourism. Tourism will be heavily impacted.
We wouldn't. Who's going to want to invest in a volatile country where you're not sure if you would get your returns on investment? The other part as well was the pre-election jitters. And that's the question I was going to ask you, because now election is over. So ideally, foreign investors should be looking to our country based on, number one, the way the election was conducted, and number two, who is elected as president or the next leader, because that would give them a sense as to whether or not they want to put their money into the country. So I'd like to ask you that question. I'll pose the question to you. Has investor confidence risen since our election? Because what we forget sometimes when we're battling ethnicity, throwing and banding words around is that the world is watching. Investors are watching. They will not put their money in a volatile or unstable economy. That's the truth. So what do you think? Has investor confidence risen since the elections?
It's wait and see. But I will say that before the election started, looking at the main candidates who were running, from Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is president-elect, to Peter Obi, and also from the PDP and NNP candidates, they were all business-friendly. So pretty much they were like, whoever wins, you will have a more business-friendly environment. So it's wait and see. The subsidy is the key thing, Ayo. If Tinubu comes in and then removes that subsidy, the investment environment to know that, okay, they are serious about revenue. So that is the key thing going forward.
Well, you probably get short-term investments instead of long-term investments.
Right.
That can
More
have,
temporarily.
much better knock-on effect. Thank you very much, Ruth.
Thank you.